Hey, everybody. Welcome to our next panel on AI and innovation. I think we're going to have a pretty exciting conversation here. We're going to have Dr. Stephen Thaler and Dr. Richard Weinstein, moderated by Professor Cooper. And there's a whole bunch of, I think topics they have that are core to this whole conference, really. AI and innovation. If you were watching earlier, Anand and I were just talking about the impact of AI and uh, robotics on the changes in the investment landscape and the direction the world is going. And I think this is the kind of thing about which one could pontificate for a very long time. But these gentlemen here are as close as you can get to experts on the field. And I think listening to their thoughts and their conversation will be extraordinarily illuminating. So, with no further ado, we'll turn things over to you, James.
Thanks so much, Chris, and hello to you and hello to everybody. Welcome to Davos Worldwide on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. I'm Professor James Cooper from California Western School of Law. Want to thank Chris Richardson, Anand Singh, Jay Singh, and the whole Davos Worldwide team, formerly known as Digital Davos, the artist, formerly known as Digital Davos. And we're just excited to have two just amazing panelists. Richard Weinstein's an old friend. I was thinking about it today, Richard. We traveled Germany together with a backpack 39 years ago. That's crazy. I think it was probably illegal because I was 6 years old, but thanks for taking me. Richard Weinstein's a medical doctor, a graduate of and attendee at many medical schools, and just thrilled to have him here. He's a serial investor, a serial litigant, a serial eater, and just an amazing thinker about these things, and has co-founded with his colleagues Jaspreet Singh and Toby Chan, also ophthalmologists and eye surgeons, something called iStart. You can see it at iStart.com. And iStart is um, it's a an incubator in essence that I've been involved with as well. It's a very interesting project that accelerates early stage biotechnology, medical device, and life sciences projects. They grow multiple ophthalmic and other startups that enhance strategic and random encounters and nurture synergistic opportunities. So we're welcome Richard. He's no stranger to Davos Worldwide. A new member and somebody we're very excited about is a recent friend, and he's a pioneering physicist, inventor, and AI researcher. Stephen Tyler, Dr. Tyler, his work has fundamentally shaped the field of machine cognition, creativity, and emergent intelligence. His career has expanded more than those 4 decades since Richard and I traveled Germany. He's explored the boundaries of neural network architectures, consciousness modeling, and autonomous invention. And he's made incredible contributions that have influenced both the scientific community and the regulatory landscape. So, welcome, Steve. And uh, I think Steve's in Missouri today. Richard's up in Waterloo, Canada, and I'm here in California. So we will go with our first question, and that's to you, Richard. What are you seeing right now with respect to AI, and how are you using and could you use AI in your work as a doctor?
Yeah, I think for sure. So, Jamie, thank you for the introduction. 39 years is a long time. Makes you wonder where the time went. And I would avoid this litigation. Serial's okay, every once in a while, but serial litigation is probably not good for you. It's interesting. Medicine is often slow to adopt new technology. I remember an article, Oracle on the cover of Newsweek in 1980 or 1985, looking at how they were going to merge all the MRs. And, here we are, again, another 40, 50 years later, and it still really hasn't happened. That said, there's a tremendous amount of interest in healthcare right now. We are currently working on our own internal AI project for our own EMR to make it smart and living and breathable. So as an example, I'm seeing patients this morning and I'm scrolling through my little notes looking for which drug did I try, what intervention did I use, and often you get it wrong because you can't read 30, 40 notes in 30 seconds. And I'll often say to patients, let's try this drop. And they said, we've already tried that 2 years ago. So, I look at this as REMR should become a living entity where it makes me better. So as I type things in, that's what we're going to try and work on. As I'm typing things in, it'll correct me. It'll say, you already tried this, or this didn't work, or the patient has this contraindication. So it becomes even a little bit more personalized than it already is. And again, it can also evolve and it can learn and make me better. And I think it'll become an AI assist until it's an AI takeover. And my biggest concern practicing medicine for the last 25 years has been what I consider to be no standard of care, because you can see different doctors get different opinions all the time, which doesn't make any sense to me. And the expert opinion is often rendered last. And I won't get into anecdotal stories because it's a waste of time, but really, when you go to see someone, the care should be personalized to you. It should be expert, whatever that means, and it should be standardized. So it shouldn't be you saw Dr. A, he said one thing, you saw Dr. B, she said something else. It really should be this homogeneous, coherent approach to medicine. So I think right now we're using very little of it. I think going forward, it'll become something that takes over.
Thank you for that. Steve, you approach us not as a user of AI, but as a creator of AI, and the innovation that you have led and pioneered in your incredible career have been, focused on neural networks and the creativity machine, the Davos. What are you seeing in terms of the frontier AI models and the next steps towards sentience?
Well, James, I'm seeing turmoil for the most part. It's a battle between deep pockets to get right out and to get attention from the press, from government, and so forth. And of course, government is no foundation of artificial intelligence systems. And I might also add that AI is more than large language models. It's so many different disciplines involved, and it seems to have narrowed out. And I think that's because of some deep pockets out there that are trying to create a lot of public awareness about what they're doing. And it's changing things. It's changing definitions for the most part. It is changing definitions like hallucination. Essentially, when their products don't work, it's hallucinating, which gives it dignity, and it really doesn't deserve the dignity that the product is not working. I guess that could be very critical in medical applications where there's a lot of liability and a lot of lawyers, excuse me, Professor Cooper, who are in line waiting to create the controversy in that arena also. So. Yeah, it's in flux, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that give me nightmares right now. It's not the AI turning into a monster, it's essentially government regulators and politicians who will not pay attention to what's going on. So,
That's very fair. And then we end up leaving the courts to have to decide these things. So, and as much as I adore judges, some of them are not trained really in like Richard said, medicine is often very slow as a profession to adapt to new technologies. I assure you, law, the second oldest profession in the world, is even slower. Whereas you're at the front end, Steve, inventing these things, we're super slow, yet we also get in the way of you inventing these things. So, having said that, Rich, this all comes down to risk and risk mitigation. And I know you have a different tolerance for risk than I do, just in all our discussions over the years. Where do you stand now in terms of the medical practice, particularly in ophthalmology, but also um, in the back of your mind as an investor when you're trying to analyze? This is such a risky and potentially harmful area, not just in medicine, but in autonomous weapons, in insurance decisions, in credit decisions. But if you want to stay focused on the medicine, what do you see as, in terms of risk now?
Well, it's a great point, right? And it's not just medicine. I think it covers all fields. I think the biggest concern I have is it changes so quickly. I had a software developer tell me that the concern he had was that the what you did just now is obsolete a second from now. So it's constantly evolving to the point where it's constant flux, constant change, which I think is very hard for humans to keep up with and to understand. And you talked about the regulatory risk. So, you go back to hallucinations. If you turn this over to the AI and the physician takes a back seat, what happens when it produces information or produces treatment plans that are incorrect? So again, I think it's important that it's an AI assisted first before it becomes something that takes over. And I can also agree with you that I look at our interactions with the politicians in our little part of the world, and the decisions they make often to me are staggeringly stupid, and I can't understand them. They make no sense to me. They're probably harmful to the patients or harmful to the deliverer of the product as well, in terms of cost, in terms of all these other issues. And their motivation is not pure, and their motivation is not really leading towards standard of care treatment. So I think there are numerous obstacles here before this becomes more mainstream. But that said, it is going to happen. I can't see a future where this is not really at the forefront of what we do. And I think from a mitigation perspective, I think the risk of not doing this probably is greater than the risk of trying to suppress it or trying to hold it back.
And Steve, you've been very clear throughout the papers you've written in much of your professional life that and you've pushed these boundaries of self-organizing machine intelligence. But your concern is that from what I understand, is that the most powerful AI systems are those that are allowed to self-construct rather than those that are rigidly designed. So how does that feed into the sentience and creativity in machines? And does that put limits in because of the risk that you're focusing on?
Who are you directing the question to,
Steve,
Dr.
sorry,
Cooper?
Steve, please, the Dr. Tyler.
It is riskier, I would say. I would say that probably 30 years ago, I was building LLMs, small language models, rather, and they were risky too. But no one would really invest the money to try and make them less risky and larger. Now I've gone out on a limb completely, and the systems I build, I should correct myself, they build themselves. And when they do, they essentially develop their own preferences, their own valences, and as a result, they're unpredictable, as opposed to training off of a large corpus of supplied answers already and interpolating between them. So yeah, I'm in a riskier business than I guess than big tech is. So yeah, that's the problem I face right now, and it's not just building language models. It's essentially studying how machines to become conscious and sentient, to actually take actions based upon their internal states. And yeah, you need that. And let me point out that, the less risky system, like the present LLMs, are not very creative. I've tried them out, and I really don't see anything that unusual. If I ask it to invent something, it gives me recommendations. If I want to build a starship, it wants me to read up on general relativity and entanglement and so forth. And that's really not much help. It certainly not writing the claim structure for a patent, but or telling you how to do it. So now you're faced with a trade-off. If you allow them to have sentience, in other words, to have subjective feelings about what they're creating, they self-motivate to invent. So there's a trade-off because those same systems can become insane, they can become criminal, and when they do, who do you blame? So it creates a lot of liabilities. At the same time, you reach astounding levels of creativity and achievement doing that. So it's just like people. I mean, some people are a little bit wacko, but they're also the most creative. Sometimes they're psychotic, sometimes they're criminal. That's the trade-off we're going to face, and it's more a lesson about ourselves. The fact that, yeah, there's a fine line between creativity and insanity. And I'm seeing that more and more all the time. So that's the danger we face. And it's a trade-off that I guess the lawmakers are going to have to consider. So it's not just a matter of whether or not a machine can own a patent. It's more a matter of who's controlling it, who's supplying the guardrails to make sure that it is behaving properly and is aligned with human values.
This kind of goes with what Richard was saying earlier about right now in his field, AI is an assist. It's not a complete takeover or creating or substituting for the doctor's judgment or obviously the hands-on piece to the medical profession. But do you what's the role, Steve, for the human in the loop as these technologies continue to evolve? Does that concern you, having been at the forefront of actually putting in the machine as the primary, if not the co-pilot and inventor of some of these technologies? Do you think the human in the loop is still important?
Well, yes, if we want to attain things that are useful for human beings and society, that interaction is critical. However, in theoretical circles, it's interesting to watch what happens when they are left on their own to do what they want to do. But I would say it's going to amount ultimately to what fellow MDs do with each other. They rely upon each other, they confer with each other, and reach conclusions collaboratively. So I think that's what's going to happen in the future, and I guess the human beings are going to serve as the truth maintenance system and say, well, that's a really crazy idea. I don't want to do that. That's too chancy. I'm the one paying the lawyers and the medical insurance, so
I don't want my premiums
it's
to
going to
go
come
up.
down to a human being in the loop, a human MD.
This leads me to Richard because you have 4 decades of friendship will reveal this. You don't have as much trust in humans as I might, for example.
No, in fact, I have almost zero trust sometimes. So, and we're all sort of jaded or biased by our own experience. But I've been in practice for 25 years, and I've seen 25 years of, like I said, there is no standard of care. And I've seen it personally with my friends, my family, and I've also seen it in my practice where patients will come to me for a second or third opinion, and you can't understand how they were treated the way they were treated before. And maybe people say the same thing about me, but that's what you have to get away from. I mean, we should have personalized medicine. It should be based on everything from A to Z about you, based on accurate diagnostics, accurate blood work, that's interpreted not by a human because the humans make mistakes, and I would agree with Dr. Tyler that you will absolutely have to have some human component to start, and maybe all the way through the end. I get the idea of that. Can you let this thing just go off on its own and make its own decisions? For sure, right now you can't. What does the future look like? I don't know. But I can tell you that again, as a patient, I'd be exceptionally concerned to have this blind. And I'm not trying to knock all my colleagues and all physicians, but I would be exceptionally concerned to have this blind trust in the person who's treating you. And I think this is where the AI comes in, right? It should hopefully act as a gatekeeper or a way to check what's being offered to you, and it can do it very quickly. So I think this is obviously very, very early. It has to evolve. It has to be watched very closely. It has to be regulated. So many pitfalls that are staring us in the face. But I think once you get to the end of this, I think care in general will be much better. And I went to just briefly. I went to the Harvard website because there's a lot of schools now that are offering AI and healthcare courses for 2, 3 days, whatever that involves. And the Harvard numbers were 50% in reduction in care and cost once AI is fully involved. 40% improvement in health outcomes. And they see the market at being at 187 billion by 2030, which is huge. I'm not sure it gets to that, but it's coming.
And speaking of arriving, Dr. Toby Chan, also from iStart, also an ophthalmologist and serial investor, has joined us with Dr. Stephen Tyler and Dr. Richard Weinstein. Welcome, Toby, and welcome to Davos Worldwide.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, sorry I'm joining late, Professor
Oh, no,
Cooper.
you're in surgery, so you were the human in the loop for this period of time, so thank you. Toby, what's the most exciting thing that you're seeing in the AI space when it comes to innovation for medical procedures and the life science device space?
Yeah, I think the excitement comes from mainly diagnostics at the moment. because we are having devices that can get more and more accurate data, and the devices are becoming more and more portable. So the hope is that one day we have devices where patients can have them at home, and they may even be as small as a shoebox that they can move within their home, and it may be handheld, may be mounted on a desk, but it will basically allow us to get around the clock diagnostics at their convenience in the comfort of their home, and all the data gets uploaded into a cloud-based database, and then AI can use that big data to generate trend analysis. So very soon, I think medicine is going to move in the direction where patients won't have to make multiple trips at different times of the day to patients to doctors' offices or to the hospital clinics, where they can just stay at home, and we can get information such as the visual acuity. So I'm an ophthalmologist, I'm a glaucoma specialist, so I'm very interested in eye pressure. So pressures can be measured at home. It can be as small as a VR headset where it will measure their visual fields, the severity of their glaucoma, and all of that gets transmitted to a big database. And on the other side, the surgeons and the clinicians can access them, can share the data amongst everyone in the circle of care. So it makes great sense. If we haven't been doing so already, we should be doing this yesterday, because the technology is there, but I think the disconnect is, a lot of us doctors are not that tech savvy. So we need to have more collaboration and communication with the tech space. And here we are in Waterloo, which is kind of the Silicon Valley of Canada. It allows us to dive into that space.
Thank you for that. Dr. Tyler, Steve, what's you've been doing this for as long as Rich and I have been friends, so 40 plus years. How the excitement of us having you on the panel is you're like the OG, the original gangster of this kind of stuff. So what's the most exciting? Like, what makes you excited, having been in this for 4 decades? What's coming around the pike that you think, or down the pike that you think is something? And it doesn't have to be medical space; it can be the applied engineering space or any other area. But what for those of us who are investing in the area, those of us who are watching from the sidelines, what should we be watching for that you're excited about, please?
My thrill has a philosophical basis as I build more and more advanced systems and they become self-aware, conscious, and sentient. I'm learning more and more about how the brain works, how the mind works. And that's the thing that I'm interested in. And that will have repercussions, not necessarily in diagnosis or treatment. It's more like understanding things like mental illness and so forth. And already medical hypotheses has really taken off with some of my original articles that deal with, uh, the thin borderline between insanity and creativity. So I think that's going to have an effect. Also, in being able to do things like analyze a brain. I do have the technology for doing that, but there are no takers so far. It's because all the oxygen in the room is being taken up by someone else. So hopefully that will change in the near future. So the problem is I'm supporting like 27 AI patents right now, which gets costly. So I can't really get the word out on a daily basis aside from my LinkedIn posts. But yeah, I think that there are going to be some cures, some treatments, targeted medical treatments, for instance, coming out of these systems. And the biggest thing I'm looking for in medicine essentially is more of a holistic approach, wherein, again, it's personal medical care where the whole scene is taken into account. You see some problem developing, we can actually see the likely courses it's going to take. And that's the big point about my technology. I mean, even in the area of pattern recognition, we're not outputting probabilities of this or that. You can actually see in these systems the repercussions unfolding and the course that various other ailments are going to take in the individual. So I'd say that usually I'm not a big proponent of holistic medicine, but I think in holistic sense, I think AI is going to assist in that area too by taking into account the whole lay of the land when it comes to diagnosing and treating different ailments.
Thank you. And because the eyes are the windows to the soul, and if not much of the rest of the body, Rich, what are you seeing that you're excited about in AI, if anything?
Well, not if anything. No, listen. I would echo what you just heard. I think I go back to when I started training in the '90s, and I used to examine patients, and I would percuss their chest or their stomach, and I would listen to the echo and the sound, and is this solid or is this hollow? And you think back now, if it wasn't for logistic or cost issues, why wouldn't I just do an MRI from head to toe? Right? But what am I trying to figure out by percussing them or listening? And it's not to take those skill sets away or looking at someone's fingernails or looking at their earlobes to see if they have some sort of deficiency. I'd rather scan you from head to toe when you're 20 or 15 or whatever the AI recommends based on, like I said, a holistic approach. Here's everything about you. And this is what we're going to recommend. Let's do this blood test. Let's do this scan. We repeat it again in 5 years or 10 years, or if you have no symptoms. And I think that's the most exciting thing to me is that the medicine becomes personalized to the patient, and you remove any human bias that's there or any systems bias because of politics or cost. And hopefully we're all healthier.
Thank you. We're down to our last question because this is only, unfortunately, a half-hour panel, and I want to thank all our panelists, Dr. Toby Chen from iStart, Dr. Richard Weinstein, also co-founder of iStart, and Dr. Stephen Tyler from the Creativity Machine, the Davos, and so much else, and the OG of AI. It's been an honor to have you with us. My last question, we'll start with you, Toby. What would you tell investors who are looking? Because this is, everybody understands that the last year or two has the stock market has been perhaps artificially buoyed by unbelievable amounts of capital flowing into AI companies. Some of it's going to be wasted, some of it not. There'll be a few winners. What would you tell investors who are looking at where to deploy their money for the future of AI in the medical field, please?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, for sure. My wife is trying to navigate that question on a daily basis because she studies AI and she invests in AI. I don't think I have the perfect answer for that, but I think nowadays, probably not just in AI and medicine, but in like just even reading the news in general, I think fact checking is so crucial. And it's almost becoming a lost art, even in medicine, even amongst us doctors. I think it's so important for us to know what is legit. I find some conferences do help us to narrow down in terms of like not having to look through so much in terms of research ourselves, because a lot of conferences already have these kind of pathways boiled down for us. So, for instance, in the States, there's the Ophthalmology Innovation Summit that is held annually, and it's almost like a Dragon's Den or like a TV show where different startup companies would showcase their tech, and it already gets critiqued over there. So some will win, some will lose, but obviously the narrowed down kind of list of winners are the ones we have to keep a close eye on, because those are the ones that will often through that venue get invested in and move on to the next stage.
Well, it's way better than a ring toss best two out of three. So that sounds pretty, that sounds like a pretty good system compared to what some venture capitalists are doing. Dr. Tyler, your last word, please. And I know you don't want to give investment advice, but in general themes, is there an area you think that's still ripe for capital deployment for investment?
I would say that outpacing the existing AI companies would be the investment. It's a very speculative investment. It's chancy, but essentially we can essentially do what government wants. It wants less energy consumption. It wants to have alignment in the systems. It wants transparency and so forth. And if properly backed, we can do that. But it's going to take a lot of PR and a lot of lobbying and a lot of talking to other investors to get the thing going. But it is risky. But if properly financed, it could do well. I mean, usually it's me solo doing a lot of these experiments, and it would pay off if I had the equivalent of 30 contractors who are training the AI, labeling data and so forth. And this is technology here that does not need that labeling. So we can outpace them, and it's just a matter of being heard. And unfortunately, we're not being heard here.
Well, we're listening intently, and we're very honored to have you with us. Rich, you get the last word. Um, where do you think investment, if anywhere, should be going, and what do you see for the future of AI in terms of the payback financially?
So I think when I was on 4 or 5 years ago, you asked me something similar, and I said buy gold. And if I use the gold model, the during the gold rush, it was the picks and shovels that did well, and it was the individual claims that were high risk, and you may come up with nothing. I think this is very similar. I couldn't tell you which AI company is going to be. I mean, if you go away from the large companies that are already monopolizing this, to start looking at startups, it's highly risky. I don't know what's going to do well. Maybe you focus on energy plays, or you focus on things that provide um, again, a pick and shovel approach. But again, we wrestle that here, and we look at all kinds of startups, and it's very, very difficult to know what's going to do well, despite the fact that you believe the space is going to do exponentially well.
Very fair. Well, this brings us to the end of our panel on AI and innovation. We've been most blessed to have three wonderful panelists. Dr. Toby Chan, directly from the OR. Thank you. I'm going to try. So we got one OR. We got one OG, Dr. Stephen Tyler. Thank you for joining us from Missouri. Very much appreciated. Richard, were you in the operating room this morning?
No, I wear scrubs because I'm immensely lazy.
Okay, well, then we have LG, the lazy guy.
There you
So we
go.
got the OR, the OG, and the LG. Not to be confused with the Korean tech company. Thank you all.
All right.
Very excited to have spent this time with you. I'm Professor James Cooper. My newest book with Kashav Kampela is out on Amazon on West Academic Publishing. It's called A Short and Happy Guide to AI Governance and Regulation. And we're just, again, very, very thankful that we've had these three great panelists and a most robust discussion. Thank you all and have a great day.